everyone. We've got a super exciting stream today. Dan is back, and we're not going to be talking about Asteroid this time. We're going to be talking about Solid. But before we get into that, Dan, please give us an intro about yourself.
Oh, yeah. My name's Dan. I like explaining things. I'm super interested in educational technology and also using education to explain technology. And because of that, I got involved in open source.
Yes.
With two main projects. So Solid is the one we're going to talk about today, and Astro is the one we talked about last time. And now I actually work for the company behind Astro as sort of a product manager thinking about education. Everyone's coming in the chat. Super excited to see everyone.
But yeah, you do so much, and it's great to hear that open source is a huge part of that. Everyone knows I love open source, so I'm super excited today. And for those of you who don't know what Solid is, actually, I don't know what Solid is, so maybe you can give us kind of a very brief overview before we get into it. What Solid is?
Yeah, high level, it's a UI framework. If you were at the stream last time, we sort of chose from a list of UI frameworks. We had Svelte, React, Solid, Vue. So Solid fits in, like if you've used Svelte or used React, it's one of those tools. The thing that's sort of special about Solid is sort of how it views interactivity. So we have a system called reactivity that sort of explains how you connect the dots within Solid. The way I would explain it for people who have been in the space for a while, it's kind of like a combination of Vue 3 with their sort of new functions and React's JSX. But if you don't know what any of those things are, it doesn't matter. We're going to start from scratch. We're going to explain, what Solid does. Yeah.
No, that sounds awesome. I'm super excited. And everyone, if you want to learn more from Dan as well after the stream, I highly recommend you do. I have shared Dan's link in the chat, and it should be in the description below, and I'll keep sharing in the chat as we go through the live streams. Let me bring up Dan's screen, and let's get coding. I know you all want to see some code. I know I do, and we're going to learn about this. So Dan, I'm bringing up your screen. Your screen is on the screen now. Let's get some shout outs. So Steve was first. Steve, awesome to have you here. Glad you're playing with Sivo, and here to learn about Solid, because I don't know about Solid either. Jazham, awesome to have you here. Thanks for your support. Sudhansu, great to have you here as well. And Emma's just jumped in. Emma, how you doing? Great to have you here.
Anthony,
sorry, go on.
I just saw Anthony posted. Special shout out to him.
Hi, Anthony. How you doing? Awesome to have you here. And then we've got, I want to pronounce the name. I'm pronouncing the name so wrong today. Ariane. Hopefully I pronounced that okay. Dan is on fire recently. Great work.
I really appreciate it.
Okay, let's get going. So what are we going to do today? How are we going to start?
Yeah, so I wanted to start by just opening up the Solid playground, because that's sort of the easiest way to see what Solid is and how it works. The thing is, though, there's a lot on the screen, and I kind of would rather start from scratch with the principles that Solid uses. But for starters, we can just look at how a Solid component would look, right? And maybe it looks familiar.
It looks like very much like React, I think.
Yeah, right? that's the reaction I wanted from you. It's
okay,
like, wait a minute, like this isn't that new to me, right? Like it kind of like the same sort of idea where you're like returning a element from a function. But why don't we like comment all this out and start from scratch? Like, what the heck is Solid? What does it do for you? So the idea is, now I'm a little bit hearing myself. All right, we're gonna we'll be fine. Solid is a UI library, so it's gonna help you put elements together and reuse them in components. But the thing that makes it special is probably why its compiler is different. So I'm just gonna show an example here. I'm gonna say like const mydiv equals div hello world. And then I'm going to say console.log mydiv. And you'll notice in the console, we have a div being printed out, and it works like any other div. So I do like mydiv dot I don't know, inner HTML, it prints out the contents of the div. So the idea is that Solid lets you easily create real DOM elements.
Okay, perfect. I mean, that sounds really good. Yeah, I like that. So I'm kind of reading the chat at the same time, but I think real DOM element sounds good. You got real in the name, so that's got to be a plus, right?
Yeah, so this is something that you can't do in React, because if you tried, React would print out some like weird React function situation.
Yes, that's true. You're absolutely right. Okay, that's interesting. Straight away.
And like, I don't have to do any other special Solid features if I didn't want to. I could do document.getElementById app, because in this demo, like imagine there's a div called app, dot append child my div, and this would just work like normal vanilla JavaScript.
Nice.
So if you're coming from vanilla JavaScript, you wouldn't do it like this. You would have done like, I don't know, document.create element div dot append, right, hello world, something. So the idea here is that these are like equivalent, and it lets you create your elements in a much easier declarative way. So that this part would be familiar to you if you're coming from React. So I can do all sorts of magic in here. So I can say like, okay, like const name equals Eddie, and be like, hello Eddie, right? So
nice.
This part is just the JSX you're used to. And if you're not used to JSX, that's also okay, because every framework has some version of this, where you create variables and you use them inside of JSX. Someone in chat says DOM is a first-class citizen. That's like totally one of the biggest motivations for Solid is you don't have to think about a virtual DOM. You can just create your elements and use them.
That's really good to know. And Emma's saying, does it have a smaller build? Like, is it more, I suppose, efficient, if that's the right word, than some of the others?
If if Ryan, the creator of Solid, was on stream, he would tell you not just that it's faster and smaller, but he'd explain exactly why it's faster and smaller. But from a high level overview, it's smaller because it doesn't need to ship a virtual DOM system. Okay. So React has to do that. The reason why I don't really like to bring that up so much is because Preact has a virtual DOM and is also really small. So it's more nuanced, virtual DOM versus DOM. There's other factors that influence the bundle size, but Solid is very small and it's also very, very fast. So when Solid was first coming out, the reason why it gained traction was in the benchmarks where you compare how fast each framework was. Solid was the winner. And the creator of Solid really, really tried to make sure it's as fast as possible.
Sounds good. Performance is becoming, much more of a hot topic recently as well.
Yeah. Okay, so this is like the basic idea behind elements, and you normally want to stick your elements inside of functions. So you could do like, I don't know, function like app, right? And then return a div. And yeah, we could just like move everything inside here, and say like, so instead of appending my div, I guess we could call this app function, and we have the same idea. So now you start to see this component idea, but the critical thing is that components are just normal functions, right? Like we had a value on its own and we just decided to put it in a function. The special thing is that I can, if I define another function, like I don't know, header.
Coming up with ideas on the fly,
know,
so that's quite hard.
On the fly, you can pitch in if you like. Return.
No, you're doing good.
Like return h1, and we can take props, which I'll explain in a bit, and I'll just say, okay, props.children, and then now I can actually wrap this in my, like I created a normal function, but JSX lets me use it like it was an element. So let's, ask some questions. Let's dive into this because some people, this is a little bit of a leap for some folks.
Now this is really good. Also, just to kind of throw a curveball, Nick Hill says, does it have server-side rendering as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
So Solid itself, the library, has the tools you need to do server-side rendering, but you obviously need a server for server-side rendering, and Solid doesn't like come with a server. You need to provide that.
Got
so there's something under the works called Solid Start, which lets you have a full-fledged server-side rendering app very similar to Next.js. But this is also why Astro is a really great framework to use with Solid, right? Astro lets you use your Solid components and it renders them on the server for you. And the way it does that is with those little primitives, little tools that the Solid framework provides.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And another question here from Aaron says, can SolidJS do await calls outside of async functions? Why are you laughing?
I love this question because this is an Astro feature. Astro lets us do this. So unfortunately, that's a special Astro feature, and in Solid you need to do your async. But I love the question. Yuri's here. Hey Yuri.
Hey Yuri. Hey Mikhail. Lots of people joining in. Hey Emmy, Ayush, and others.
Okay, so we've got the idea of components, which are just functions. They can take props, which let you like set data in them. So for example, here, if you pass elements, it just becomes the children prop. This would be familiar if you're using React, but like I could pass, I don't know, some sort of like prefix equals like message, and then I could like use that by saying like, okay, props.prefix : so this is the idea of props with components. We talked about props in Astro. I'm sure you've seen props in Svelte, React. It works the same way. So that's the basics of Solid's rendering. It lets you use real DOM elements. It lets you compose them using these functions, and yeah, we can move on to like the next part of Solid. Are there any questions?
Let's do it. I don't think anyone has any questions specifically on that yet. So that's looking good. So I think everyone's following along. I really like it, and I like how you can wrap it in functions, and it still just works out the box. It's like really, really clean. So I think it's all good.
So one thing we're gonna do is not use this way to put the elements into the DOM. The reason why is because in order to access Solid special tools for reactivity, we have to tell Solid, hey, look inside this app. So if you've ever used like Vue, there's like a global app thing you have to use to like start your app. So Solid has a similar thing called the render function. So I'm going to go ahead and import the render function from Solid. You'll notice it comes from SolidJS/web. That's because there's an idea of using Solid for non-web apps, but that's a whole other story.
If we get time at the end, you have to we'll hear a bit more about that, I think.
So yeah, now we have the same thing as before. We're just telling Solid that this is the Solid system. Oh yeah, before we get to the next step, Kuya asks, is this function compiled? So yes, I think I mentioned it before. The reason why we can do things like console.log div hi is because behind the scenes this gets compiled. So if we look at the output tab, you can see what Solid generates. So you'll see at the top, every time we used JSX to create an element, Solid takes note of it, and then it's like, all right, later on we're gonna like clone them when we need them. So the header function, it clones this this template and uses it. So the compiler takes everything we write and makes sure that it works with JSX. So we don't have to delve too much into the compiler because it's got a lot of like hard to read things. But the important high level overview is the compiler keeps the shape of your code, right? Here we had a
Okay.
function, here we have a function. Here we have a console.log, here we have a console.log, right? Here we have the app, we have the same thing here. Here we have the render line, and here we have the render line. And this is an important point I like to make, because a lot of people say like, is Solid just like Svelte? Is it just like, Svelte with JSX? And the answer is like, not really. And this is a big reason why. In Svelte, it will generate very different component code based on what you wrote. And Svelte calls itself a disappearing framework because instead of shipping with like reactivity in the browser, it just compiles your code to do the interactive steps from scratch. So when we go into this next step and talk about like reactivity and interactivity, in Solid, we don't compile that away. We ship it to the browser. And the only thing we compile away is JSX related stuff.
Got you. I see. Okay. Interesting. And someone asked a question about CSS. If we were to put styling in there, I'm probably jumping ahead a bit now, but we not to go into detail now. But is it done similar to React? Is it done a different way?
Similar to React. So Solid doesn't ship with any like CSS tooling built in. You can choose from a big list. If you like CSS and JS, you can use like Stitches or Linaria, or we have like a community project called Solid Styled. If you like Vite, you can use any standard Vite plugin like Tailwind or Uno CSS. So it's very similar to React.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, so I think we're gonna add some buttons. We're gonna make some magic happen here.
Let's do it.
So, the standard example is like, you create like a counter component.
Yeah, I think we did that in Astro last time, but this
right?
is good. A bit consistency.
Right. You always got to have your counter. Let's have it take a starting value. So I'll be like, counter initial equals 2. And then I'll be like, all right. The idea is we'll have a div, and in the div we'll have a. I did mention Tailwind, Anthony. I said any plugin works.
You did mention Tailwind. I was listening out for Tailwind. You definitely said it.
Yeah, big fan of Tailwind. So here we're gonna have a button, and it's gonna be like click me, and then we're gonna like display the count, but we don't have a count yet. So here's how we do interactivity in Solid. Okay. We need a special value, a value that will be able to update things, and that is called a signal. So we're gonna go ahead and import create signal from SolidJS, and now we can go. And this is going to look a little bit like React. So we're going to say like get count, set count equals create signal. We could say 0, but we're actually going to use the initial value. So we're going to say props dot initial. So now we can create. Well, first of all, let's just display the count. Count is get count. All right. Okay. Does this part sort of make sense so far? We have a signal which stores a value, and the first function is a getter.
Okay. So again, it's kind of similar to React in a way. I like it how you've separated it with a getter and a setter, whereas in React, it's the value and the setter, which I think is always a bit confusing coming from old school, because it kind of is a getter, but they don't call it that. So yeah, I like you call it that.
This is really important here. So the reason why I'm calling it a getter is because you have to call it as a function every time you want it. In React, I would able to basically do like get count without calling it.
Yeah.
And this would work. That's not how Solid works. You have to call it. Why? Because, well, why would we expect to be able to get a dynamic value from just a normal variable? It has to be a function. And that's sort of where we start to get into the difference between Solid and React, is that React will run your function over and over and over again every time something changes. Mm-hmm. Solid's functions are like normal functions. They don't get called many times. So if you want to repeat a behavior, you're going to be calling a function. So the setter is going to work pretty similarly to React. So if I create a like event handler function like on click or like button clicked, if anyone, this might be a throwback for you. If like in Windows development you called it like BTN clicked, those were the days. Those were the days. So it can say like set count previous +1. So the idea of the setter is it can take a function. It doesn't have to take a function. You can just set it to a value, but it can take a function that gives you the previous value and then you return something new. So if I go ahead and on click equals button clicked, and I can just wee. All right. So we got to the stage of the demo, and just if anyone in the audience is coming from React, I'm going to put a console.log here, and your head might break.
Yeah, but anyone in the chat, let us know if you've done React before. It'd be interesting to see.
In React, you'd expect this to happen every time I press the button, right?
Yes.
That's not going to happen here. Do you sort of see why it doesn't happen?
Because it's calling the it's not doing the whole component. It's just doing the function. It's
just doing this part. So behind the scenes, Solid makes a connection between this signal and the code that uses it. So because we're in JSX, Solid like looks in our JSX and says, let's make sure there's no reactive variables in here. Oh wait, there's a reactive variable. All right, we're gonna register this to be connected with this so that every time someone changes the count, just this part of the DOM will change. And it really is just that part. So like if I look in the code and let's open up inspect element here. Oh wait, I think I can actually do it here. Okay, cool. App div. Okay, so do you see here? I don't know if it's big enough. These three things.
Big, yeah. Yep.
So when I click the button, first of all, you can see that Solid separates it, right? Here it looks like one string, but Solid separates it behind the scenes. You have count is on one line and this number on the other. And when I click it, only that number is going to change. Oh, what? That's so sad. It doesn't update in the... But if I go here, you'll see the same idea.
Yeah. So it's really smart. So it's really efficient. It's not doing the whole thing. It's just doing exactly what it needs to.
React will end up doing the same thing where it only updates the part of the DOM that needs. But the way React gets there is by using a virtual DOM. So React will run everything behind the scenes and get two entirely new, full components. And then React will use the virtual DOM to decide to only update this. In Solid, there's no virtual DOM. So Solid just creates a connection between this and this. And then it gets updated like surgically. We call this like fine-grained.
Okay.
All right, let's check out the chat because I feel like we did a bunch of stuff.
We did a lot, and I've been bringing some things up on the chat. So some people are from React, which is good to see. Some from Svelte. Yuri says, yeah, super interesting. What kind of sorcery? Yeah, it's true because we're so used to having a virtual DOM. I think it's just been like when virtual DOM came out. I remember back in the day, it's like amazing. You get a virtual DOM, and it's kind of everything seems to go around in circles in technology. It was all about server-side rendering like 12, 15 years ago, and it was like no, do everything on the client side, everything, literally everything, as much as you can, push it to the client side. And now we're going back to server-side rendering, a bit smarter this time, definitely, and we're trying to have a balance between the two. And then having no virtual DOM now, then it was all about virtual DOMs, and now it's like actually we don't need one, make it smarter. So yeah, it's super interesting. This is an interesting one. Solid was my first framework. So
honestly, I'm so glad to hear that. Go follow.
If you don't count Angular is a framework.
That's not fair.
Solid and React are actually just libraries, so don't confuse the two. There is a difference.
Angular doesn't deserve that kind of dismissal. Angular is a thing.
Angular is awesome. I mean, it's a real framework. It's like not just a library. It's a real framework.
Yeah, I think the framework versus library I hate the debate. But if there's anything useful out of it, when someone asks like, does Solid have CSS? What we call frameworks often have CSS built in.
Okay, yeah. I think the way I define the two is, I think the debate's silly, but I think it's a lot of
yeah.
But I think there is a difference. Like, it's saying, car or motorcycles. Like, well, which one's going to get you to the shops faster? They're kind of doing the same thing, but they're doing it very differently. And the way I explain it, it took me a while to get this. I'm quite keen on sharing this with people. Is with a library, you bring it into your code. With a framework, you put your code into the framework. So a framework's got a lot more conventions, whereas a library is a lot more configurable, is the way I kind of see it.
Unfortunately, React and Solid, despite being libraries, do sort of ask you to put all your UI code inside of them. So with these functions,
you can do part of it though, is what I mean. Whereas if something like Angular, you need to really drink the Kool-Aid, and you've got to just live and breathe the way it does it.
It's very easy to include Solid on part of your page. Like you showed this example where you just call the renderer. So
exactly.
Basically what we're doing here is just saying just this div, that's where Solid lives. So it's very easy to bring it into your existing code.
Exactly.
What did I want to show? Oh, I wanted to show a little puzzle for people.
Oh no.
So I'm going to copy this function.
Puzzles.
I'm going to cut it.
Puzzles. Is it like escape room? Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I'm removing the function and I'm going to paste it inside another component.
Okay.
And it works equally well. In React, this would break. Have you ever tried to put a component inside another component in React?
No, I haven't.
All right, so maybe it's less of a fun puzzle.
I'm trying to think now, because some things you just do on autopilot. You don't think about it. So I'm trying to think. So it would break in React, is what you're saying?
Yeah, the idea is that because Solid's functions are normal functions that run once when you call them, you can do all sorts of typical stuff. Like in a function in JavaScript, you can always define a function inside of it. And the same with it just happens that this function is also a component. Okay, people in chat I think are hopefully getting my drift here as to why Solid's different than React. Can I do an Excel draw?
Do a what?
Can I do drawing?
Yeah, sure. It sounded painful, but if it's just a drawing, then that doesn't sound so painful. Right. Go ahead and do that. And how this is handling this object. So I'm guessing when you refer to this, well, this is all we've referred to the current your current scope.
Oh, I'm not sure what that question is exactly going for, but I wanted to explain like the difference between. So we can pull this out for now, but just the difference between Solid and React is that like, if I think I can just copy and paste this code in there. Wow, look at that font.
Nice font.
Look at that font.
That's better.
Okay, so what the cult of Exaladra, yeah. What Solid does is it creates a connection. So we have Solid looks into your JSX, sees you use something reactive, and puts a little marker around it, and then it goes up here and makes sure but just okay. So it sort of draws a little wire between anything that changes the count. So we got a little wire here because this was the setter was used. Okay, so this is like the surrounding code. The component code only runs once. So like if you can imagine like the execution loop or the execution, kind of looks like this.
Top to bottom.
Yeah, okay. Top to bottom. Do an arrow. So it only runs this, and this is kind of like normal code execution. It goes line by line. So this is it does the normal code execution, and then along the way it creates a connection so that every time you set a count, this code reruns. Also, yeah, someone says in chat, all signals get wired to their usage. That's how I would view this. In React, is there a React playground just so I can copy, paste, and change the code? Yeah, React.
Is there a playground for React? I didn't think there was.
Yeah,
oh,
I can just
okay.
copy and paste this code and show you.
Yeah, do it. That'd be a great comparison. Someone did ask for a comparison in the chat, and I missed it somewhere. So perfect.
So we'll just call the counter, and we have to say instead of get count, it's count. Instead of create signal, it's use state. We still want to pass an initial value, and use state is not defined. Do I have to do import use state?
You'll have to import it, yeah, from React.
Okay.
And then online. No, it's okay.
And we can change this to count. You get it right? Okay, it works. And if you look at the console, every time I click this button, oh, you can't really see because it's just a number, but every time you click it, there's another hello in the console. So let's copy this to explain how React runs. Oh, wait, copy. Okay. Oh, look, it chose the right font. I'm so happy. Okay. In React, what happens is instead of the this sort of like arrow, it's more of a loop. So it's kind of like that, and then that, and then I guess it.
It's a squiggly line.
And the things that can trigger this loop to run again. So like, there's no special wiring in the return. It's more just that this gets wired up. So let's make this like this whole thing is green. So in Solid, the thing that was rerunning, we made it green. Just this reruns. In React, the entire thing reruns, like literally the entire function. So we are basically wiring this individual setter to like the entire thing. I don't really know how to draw that, but you get the idea.
It's not as efficient because it's going to rerun, the entire component again. And what happens with nested components? Would it run any nested components?
Yeah, it would recreate it. So like, let's just try the example in React. Maybe I'm wrong and it doesn't break. I thought it would break. Let's try it. I stick it in here. Let's see what happens. Oh, it works. Oh, but we don't have any state in the parent, right? So like if I put state here, const some state, set some state equals use state 0, and then like I put another counter inside here where it's like some state outer, and then this is just going to be like set some state prev +1. Let's see if this does what I think it'll do. It should recreate the entire thing. Yep. So this is not what you want, right? So anytime the state in the outer changes, it reruns the whole thing. Whereas if I did this in Solid,
that's a really good example to have an inner and outer. I really like that example.
Yeah. That's crazy. Just to prove that this works fine in Solid.
Yeah, you got to prove it now. Like the pressure's on. You've tested this beforehand, right?
No, I haven't. So let's do some outer state. Const get outer set outer equals create signal 1, and then we can say like, all right, outer is get get outer, and
We need some
then
votes, everyone, by the way, while Dan is coding. Everyone, out of 10, how much do you think this is going to work? Dan is right, out of 10. Is 10 out of 10 Dan right? Are you 50% chance? Is this going to work like React, or is it gonna be independent?
On click equals right, set. Oh, yeah.
11 out of 10. Love it. 10 out of 10.
Set outer prev goes
Hey,
to
Carl. Emmy, wow. Emmy only gave you a 5.
That's it. And I deserve that. But yeah, they are independent. And like, hopefully my drawing explains why. Like, this code, this function only ever runs once in Solid. So it's just sort of like independent from anything we do here. This gets wired up. Like, this get outer gets wired up to the signal to rerun. And then the inner gets wired up to the other one, to the inner one to get rerun. So it's all just individual wiring. Whereas in React, the entire, like, when we change the outer, it just reruns the entire code, including the code that like creates the inner component and sets it up. So it's in React, you just would never put a function inside of a function component inside of another function. But there's other things that you're not allowed to do in React. Like, you can't put this inside an if statement, right? Like, if, I don't know, true or something. You can't create state like inside of an if statement. And that's because use state in React, it needs to run predictably every single time we read around the function. But in Solid, like, it's just a little reactive atom. It's just a little piece, a little value, a variable. Variables don't have to run predictably, right? You can use them whenever you want. Ooh, someone asked a good question. What if I want the counter to be the same? That's actually really easy to do in Solid and a little hard to do in React.
When you say the same, could you clarify the question?
What I interpreted was, what if instead of each button having their own count, they just showed the same count?
Okay, I see. And then before we do that, can you just give a quick demo of it working in Solid again? So you can hit the click me on the inner, and then on the outer, it doesn't reset it. So they're independent, even though they're coded not independent. Okay, React leaves the chat.
So if I wanted them to use the same counter, I would just change this getter to use the inner one, to just use the outer one. So instead of get count, it would be get outer. And then for the setter, it would have to be set outer, and then they would just use the same one. But but the cool thing about this is I can do this wherever I want. So instead of the outer happening inside the app, I could have it literally anywhere else. It could be outside the component, and it still works the same.
I see, got you.
In React, if we look at our example, if I would move this state outside the component, I think it would just break. Yeah, it just breaks.
Think it would work. Yeah.
It gives us a nice explanation. Invalid hook call. But like, it's there's a lot less to learn in Solid because it just sort of has less rules and works. I would say like predictably. But the best way to describe it is I usually say this one on the left is opt. Oh God. Opt in re-rendering, and the one over here is opt out re-rendering.
Okay.
So let's talk about the first one. Does the opt in nature of this make sense at first?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, in any React lovers out there, in React's defense, it did come first. So, whatever comes first, I think takes the hit of the learning curve. And then the second one can always be better, which is why AngularJS, when it came out, it was groundbreaking, but it wasn't the first one to come out. There was 101 before it. React came out. It was going to supposedly be the last ever UI library to take over the world. People even wanted to do APIs with it, I heard, and all sorts of things. And now you can see it's slowly being replaced by others. So, and in 10 years, Solid might not be the best one. It can be improved on further. So React people don't get upset. It's just technology.
Also, I'm not really trying to say that this one is objectively better. I like it better, but that's subjective. Like, if you like this one better, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that it's not. If you want to use benchmarks, sure. Like, this one sometimes or most of the time is faster, but like that's not really that big of a deal. If you like React, I'm not going to sit here and be like, use Solid instead, especially because React has a much bigger ecosystem. Okay, but I do want to explain this opt-out situation.
Yeah.
So this is going to get into effects. So in Solid, the console.log doesn't render again because we didn't opt into it. In React, it does run every time. But what if we wanted to only run the console in React once? How would we do that? Let me just pull the counter out again. This is a really long way to do it. Just hold Control-Z a million times. Okay, so you can't really see it in the console here. But
I can see this as a 2.
Yeah, 2, and every time I click it, it goes up.
Yeah,
it
4,
actually
8, 12.
It actually goes up twice, and that's like a weird React thing. But the point is, in Solid, it just never goes up. But in React, how would I tell it to only start once? To only console.log once? React has a use effect, and what we can do is we can wrap it in a use effect, and then if I'm lucky, it'll only run once. Or maybe I have to do a empty dependency array. Yeah,
you probably will, yeah.
I have to do this. All right, so the point is React has a way to make sure it only runs once. It actually runs twice because it's a weird React thing, but the point is it's never going up. So yeah, Emmy was on it. Yeah, use callback is very similar, but the idea is we've now prevented it from running again. So what my represent? Yeah, if you're a React person, keep to React. I'm not here to like yell at you. It's fine. Solid is just another choice out there. So what did we just do? We opted out of something. React was running this code every single time as part of the function, but we opted out of it. So one way to think about it is we protected it. So like we can draw a little square around it, right? We protected it from the green.
Now I understand what you mean by opt out.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, got you. That makes sense.
So in React, all right, I'm going to put some words on the screen, and chat can tell me if you've heard of these. So we have create effect. Sorry, not create effect. Use effect. A lot of you have already heard of that. Use memo. Use callback. All right. Pat, are any of these words familiar to you?
I've seen them mentioned in the chat already. Someone mentioned use memo as well further up.
All three of these allow you to protect something from React's re-rendering. If you put it in a memo, it won't rerun when the React reruns all of your surrounding code. If you put it in a callback is specifically to protect functions, but the same idea happens. It protects it from re-rendering. So in my mental model, because I want to try to understand all the frameworks, I'm like, oh, that's why React has all these tools, because React wants to give us control over when something, is part of the normal flow versus part of its own flow. So in Solid, let's do the opposite. In Solid, we started with console.log only happening once. What if we want it to happen every single time the state changed? All right, we're going to use Solid's like mirror image, bizarro, alternate universe version of effect. It's called create effect. And in React, create effect lets us sort of opt out and do its own thing. In Solid, create effect lets us opt in. So we can, maybe I should just pull this out again so it's easier to read. Yeah, still doing the same thing. Can we go back to our outer state demo? Yeah, this should be get count. This should be set count. All right. So right now, whenever I click the counter, nothing happens. Like we only had the first one on the initial creation. So if I want it to happen every single time, I'm going to create an effect. And I'm going to put it inside here. And I'm going to use the get count. So get count. All right. So now I guess I don't need this space. So now every time I click it, it reruns with the latest value.
Got you.
So we don't have this idea of dependency arrays. So Solid runs your effect, sees, oh, Dan used a reactive value. I'm going to wire them up, right? So if you imagine back on my Excel I just created a new wiring. So if let me just click like wrap it in what we did. Hello plus get count. So here what we did was we just created a new green little like wiring. So now I guess the best way to put it is put the green around the function inside of it. So now we've just created a new connection so that like I'm just going to draw a terrible direct arrow so that the setter also updates this. So we've just opted into something new.
Got you.
Also, this isn't exactly the same because we're actually using the value in here. If for some reason I really just wanted it to not print it out, I could just like do it like that. So it still tracks it, but it won't actually print it out.
Got you. I see what you mean. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, so that's really interesting. I mean, you can see people in the chat saying, super interesting, really interesting, and great to see the difference between the opt-in and the opt-out. And I think that's really important. I think making Emmy go from a non-believer to a believer, Yuri, that's so funny. Yeah, it's true, right? Because I think we do a lot of these things because people on socials tell us and all the rest, but we don't always look at it. It's just done that way, right? It calls it every time, and we use useEffect to opt out, but never thought of the complete flip side. That's why there's loads of people much smarter than me because they look at things very differently and they think, right, how can we turn this model completely upside down on its head and see if we can do things differently and better. So yeah, like test-driven development, right? It was like write code, then write tests afterwards. And someone came along and went, actually, what happens if we write the test first and do it that way? So yeah, this is awesome. Really, really awesome.
There's like a parallel between how this effect works and how this works. So in my drawing, I wired them both up, right? When we did this, Solid was like, register it so that whenever we set the count, it updates. And the same thing happened when we use an effect. Solid was like, all right, every time set counts, run the thing inside the effect. So in Solid, these things inside your JSX are turned into effects behind the scenes. So create effect is the same thing happening here. It's just automatically done for us.
That sounds good. So I have some, I guess, questions, but they're slightly off topic.
Let's do it. Because there's a lot of Solid features that make your life easier, but this is the core of what Solid is.
Actually, maybe before I ask those questions, maybe mention some of the others that you think are like pretty interesting. Like, what are your next kind of three or something?
So there's an idea of a memo. So if you have what we call like derived state. So for example, const times 2 equals get count times 2. I can say double. I need to like put this in a paragraph or something. Doubled, and then we can do like times 2. What this does. I forgot to call it. I was in React land. So what this does is it every time, like basically when solid gets to this line, it looks inside the times 2 function, sees that you're using a reactive signal, and creates the same subscription. But every time get count changes, it will then run this code, and then display it. So if I put if I put a console.log in here, like console.log calculated, then what we get is not just so first of all, every time we change count, it will recalculate, and we see calculated. But also, if I used it again, so let's say I was like, aha, quadrupled equals times 2 plus times 2. So now I have 3 usages, and so it'll run 3 times every time I change the dependency, right? So you see calculated 3 times. But that doesn't make much sense, because why should we calculate it again? We already knew, like when we changed count from 1 to 2, we already knew that 2 times 2 is 4. I don't need to run that code again. So this is a silly example, but you can imagine a lot of derived state is expensive. Like it could be calling another library, it could be looking at the DOM. So we can use what's called a memo. So I'm going to import create memo. All we do is wrap our function in create memo, and now it will only rerun this code when get count actually changes. So now we only see calculated once. And
do you want to clear that and just start that again so it's easier for people to see?
Yeah. All right. So in the console, everything gets logged the first time, because we're using it initially, and then when I click on the button increments the count. That runs the memo. You can kind of imagine a memo as like a similar kind of subscription to an effect, but it stores a value. So someone in chat says memos just cache them. Yep. So a memo like creates a spot in memory to store the value. So yeah, every time I click it, the memo reruns, and then every time we use the memo, it just gives us the latest value.
Got you.
So
people need to remember to do that to make sure they keep it efficient. I guess it's something that can always be added later on as an efficiency improvement.
They don't really have to do this. I would say, the way I write my code is I don't use memos unless I feel like I need them. The nice thing about memos in Solid is they're not related to like the rendering flow like they are in React. They're just like a nice way to cache a value.
Got you. Makes sense. And before I forget, everyone, don't forget to follow Dan on Twitter. Link in the chat on the screen and in the description below.
Yeah, so there's like a lot we could talk about, but I'm curious what your questions are so far.
Yes, so we were talking about kind of comparing Solid to React, and then is there so I never used to like React, but I started liking React when Next.js came about. So my question is, and I think you answered this in the last stream, so I'm kind of repeating it again. Does Solid have, like Svelte has Svelte Kit? Is there something similar for Solid, or do you recommend combining it with Astro, like Astro?
So right now, I do recommend combining it with Astro, but that is different than Svelte Kit. Like last time we talked about Astro versus Svelte Kit. So Astro doesn't really fit in the same hole. Like it lets you do server-side rendering, but Svelte Kit makes your entire app Svelte, and Astro makes little parts of your app Svelte. So if you use Solid with Astro, you can make little parts of your website Solid. But if you want the entire thing, then you want something like Solid Start. So Ryan, the creator of Solid, is working on one of these. It's gonna take a while. I don't if you're one of those like early adopters, like I want to try it out during development, you can do that. It's not documented. It changes all the time. There are fun community projects like Rigidity. Oh, he renamed it. So you can check this out. But it also has like a huge under development sign. And Solid Start is the same way. Like if I Google SolidJS, Solid Start, you can get to it, but it should have a warning. Instead of having a warning, you can look at the changelog and it's like 0.1.0 alpha dot question mark. So that should give you an idea of the status. What Anthony says, it will definitely be ready within the decade. It's very hard to make one of these frameworks. So
of course, absolutely.
If you think about what SvelteKit involves, it's like a ton of Vite stuff and routing and edge cases and hydration. And it's like, these frameworks are insanely complicated. Yeah, Stephen's like 0.1.0 when? Yeah, but it's all like alpha dash question mark. So if you are, this creates an opportunity for you, right? If you really like the cutting edge, you can come in early. Maybe you can pitch in, help out with the development. If you just want to like do server-side rendering with Solid, I recommend Astro. You can even, if you wanted to, you could have one Astro island, like put your entire app in just an Astro island, and it'll do a basic hydration behavior very similar to Next.js. So I do recommend Astro, but also I'm biased.
And then on that note, another question is, so SvelteKit Next.js also comes with kind of a lightweight backend. Does Astro and Solid Start also come with something similar?
Both of them, yeah.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Magic takes time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a few minutes. We can talk about some more interesting features if you want.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
So there's people talk about fetching data. You mentioned like the back end. So
yeah.
Solid comes in with a special signal that gets its data from a server. So let's do a any fun API we can call from. I usually just go to the Pokemon API. Do you have
Pokemon API. We have an EddieHub API. I think it's public, right? So
how do I get to it?
Let me just grab you the URL. I have it on my screen somewhere. Carl's in the chat, and Carl is the EddieHub API expert. But it's api.eddiehub.io. I'm trying to think of a useful endpoint. Let me bring up Swagger.
Ooh, Swagger. I like the sound of that.
So yeah, if you go to API, I can put it in the chat with the Swagger. You can bring it up and see. Hey Raul, I'm doing fine. How are you? Thanks for joining. How does everyone use the Pokemon API? I've never heard of it or used it. Or Lauren Ipsum. But yes, I think we should be able to call some data. I think the read data is all public. So what's the interesting one? Let's have a look. Carl, I'm kind of looking at you. I'm just clicking on Swagger myself and having a play with a few things. What's an interesting one? Oh yeah, here's an interesting one. If you do the path /GitHub.
Swagger /GitHub?
Yeah, sorry. Let me just check it without Swagger. GitHub. Yeah, so /GitHub, just without the Swagger. So .io /GitHub.
All right, so we're gonna create a function that calls this. So async function fetch Eddie, and it's just going to call const response equals await fetch. So here, for those people, we could not do a top level await. It's a cool feature, but you do need that async because it's just JavaScript here. So we're gonna do fetch.
If you could change the URL, sorry, to also append to the end, EddieHub community with camel case, so capital E, capital H, capital C. So therefore you get, rather than a list, you're going to get specific stats. Okay.
So we could change this to any repository, right?
As long as we track it. So probably...
Yeah, just, give me a few examples because I'd like to use that as a parameter.
Oh, okay, got you. So you could do my GitHub username, which is Eddie Jowd.
Okay, so first let's just take like a repo is a string, and then
It's user. It's not repo. Sorry.
user.
So it could be org or user, basically. Yeah.
All right, so we'll try out a few different values in a sec, but I mean, I could just go ahead and console.log or const object equals await response dot JSON, and then we'll just log that out for now, and then we're going to call this fetch Eddie hub community and see what happens. That didn't do anything. What did I do wrong?
Fetch Eddie. Oh, do you need an await in front of fetch Eddie?
Well, the console should. What is happening? So sad. I have no idea what I'm doing. Oh, maybe I didn't do the fetch correctly.
The fetch looks good. Because you don't want the extra parameters. Looks okay. Console log the response, then you wait the JSON. But isn't it? Yeah, you have to do something like that, I think.
I mean, we can do it this way too. The first issue in my demo, and it's not even solid.
We must be missing something. Someone's going to help us out. It's at the end of the demo, so it's pretty good. You've been on fire this whole time. You're bound. It's prove it's live. You're bound to make one mistake. But yeah,
failed to fetch. Failed to fetch.
Oh, cores.
Oh, cores. No, it's a cores thing. All right. I think if I put it,
strikes again.
I think if I do this in stack blitz, so if I go to solid.new, wow, core. It's always cores, right? It's always cores.
Cores is not a friend.
So let's just do this in stack blitz. Stack blitz will clear this up. So this is like a very similar setup here. For those who wanted to know how to use styling, like if you're in Vite, you can just import the styles. What's yelling at us now? All right, we forked it. It loads everything again. Let's just remove all that. All right. This is just a type. We don't even have to use this for this demo.
Yeah, so people who, for TypeScript, you use types, you get a lot of benefits from that, but we'll keep it simple for now and keep it to JavaScript. Even though it's a TS file, it's fine, don't worry. You can still use normal JavaScript.
All right.
Chico, no. Sorry, a dog wants a treat. You've had enough already. Thanks, Carl, for checking. I think we probably got it locked down to our domain, I'm guessing, for cause.
Oh, it's on your side.
Oh, yeah, it will be our side. Sorry. I think we will lock it down. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay, so then I can just use the Pokemon API. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. We probably do want to have a wildcard in cores on our API so people can use it. The whole point of having it public. Yes, that's probably... you found a bug, so thank you so much, Dan, and everyone else. I think we would.
All right, Pokemon API. So now we're just gonna do it like this. We're gonna call it fetch Pokemon, and we're gonna fetch Bulbasaur. It's gonna fetch Pokemon. All right, it does a lot of console logging. We only want
We've got 3.
we only want the last one, I guess. All right, we get abilities, base experience. Okay, so this is a boring old fetch. If we wanted to use it as a reactive signal, you might want to like set a signal here, but then what happens when you want to fetch a different Pokemon? You have to do it again, so then you might put it in effect. It gets really complicated really quickly. In React, you usually like immediately import a library for this kind of stuff. In Solid, we start with create resource. So what we're going to do is instead of doing this, we let's
Okay, I got a picture of the dog to share later on in Discord.
We probably want like a. All right, I'm gonna not use the counter. We're gonna sorry everyone, counter is getting deleted. No, I don't want it
You committed
anymore.
it though, right? It's all committed. It's fine. It's no,
It's definitely not. Yeah. All right, we're not gonna use counter. All right, we're gonna instead do. We're gonna create an input. All right, we don't need any of this. We're gonna do a input and a. Oh, we don't even need a button. All right, input type equals text. Is that right? And then on change, on input really, but on changes, there's a whole rabbit hole about how React changed how on change works, but I'm not going to get into that. So we're gonna have a signal here to represent what the user's typing. So const get input set input equals create signal start here, and then we're going to just say whenever we change it, we're going to go event goes to set input event.target.value. All right, so let's test it out. We're going to call get input afterwards and see if our signal. Oh. All right, our signal does work. So if you do want to get into this rabbit hole, this only updates after you lose focus.
Okay.
In React, it doesn't work that way because React changed how it should work. If you do want to update all the time, you would change this to on input, and now it'll update all the time. But I actually like the focus for this. So so what we want to do is we want to call the API every time this input changes, and we want to fetch that Pokemon. So if I put in like Bulbasaur, it will go fetch that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say const data equals create resource, and we pass it a. So there's a few ways to use create resource. We're going to do this one. So we're going to pass in the signal that we want it to look at. And then we're going to pass the fetcher function that we made, fetch Pokemon. And then I don't remember what it returned. We had abilities. All right, we're going to, I think, is there a name? Yeah, I think we have a name. So we're going to try.
A name, yeah.
We're going to just do like data dot name. Sorry, data signal. And if I type Bulbasaur, all right. So that's obviously not that interesting because it just it goes to the API just to get what we typed. So what else can we get here? Like maybe the length of the abilities.
Yeah.
Data.abilities.length.
Abilities. Okay.
So now if I do like Bulbasaur, all right, Bulbasaur has 2 abilities. All right, let's go ahead and so first of all, this I wanted to show off this feature. So if I change this, it automatically goes back to the database and fetches us. All right, I'm going to do both. I'm going to do first of all, yeah, data dot.
Because that one had the same length. Or you could do on abilities. You could join them with a comma, and therefore we get to see that or is it an object? I'm guessing it's an array of strings.
We'll see what happens.
Oh, it's objects. Okay, so
all right, let's do it. I'm going to show off the for component. For each equals data dot abilities. All right. And we might have to say like or empty array just in case there's nothing. We probably don't have to do that, but all right. Okay, and then we're gonna say for each ability, we're gonna say ability goes to some div, and that div is going to, what do we have in abilities? We have each has a name, so we're gonna do ability.name. All right, so that's how we loop in Solid.
Okay. I had nothing. Oh, we broke it. We broke it. It's okay. No one was watching.
I'm so annoyed. All right. We're gonna create an effect that just prints out what data we get every time.
I was gonna say, yeah, do a console log and see.
All right. Oh, it's all we need to go a layer deep. Oh wait, hang on. Bulbasaur. Oh no, abilities. All right, data.abilities. All right, Mewtwo. All right, each ability is an object. Each ability has abilities inside of it. That is so annoying.
We should have done the AnyHub API, but that is very annoying to have named.
I think I have to do ability.ability.name.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we got it to work, everyone. Bowing to the audience.
Thanks for your help, everyone. Yeah.
You too. So, what did I want to show here is that Solid has a built-in primitive. Have a signal always be the value of some like asynchronous thing. So hopefully this very convoluted demo shows that off. Every time we change this input signal, it calls this fetcher with the latest value of the input.
Got you. Okay.
This is terrible API design.
I'm still a bit shocked by that as well. That is not very fun. I don't like the double naming, and yeah, I don't think that is needed. They could just do a map on their side or something to clean it up a little bit and then fix it later.
Someone's asking about for. So yeah, for takes a function as a child, which is a little bit unintuitive at first. So yeah, you do need this JSX inside of for. Is there a loading state along with the data? Yes, I feel like he's perfectly setting me up with that comment.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Go on, show us that. I missed it.
So I didn't use it. So if I want to get the value of the data, I call it like a signal. But if I want to see if it's loading, I can just I guess I'll say loading, like loading, data, or well, it's a Boolean, so I have to do something cool with it. All right, we're gonna do another component like show when equals data.loading. And inside the show, we're going to stick all this stuff. Or the input is always going to show. But then this, so these are like little control flow things that Solid ships with to make your life easier. So now we don't see that little colon anymore. But I can also do I can add a fallback. So I can say fallback equals loading. All right.
Got you.
I can do like Bulbasaur and oh, wait a minute. I'm clearly doing something wrong.
Well, data loading. Isn't data? Oh, you put it there as a create resource. Okay.
I'm very annoyed. Okay. What is happening?
It did work for a second. It looked like it disappeared.
I'm doing something wrong, and I don't like it.
I came here for the show. Data.length. I think it's I think data.loading is a special variable.
It's a special property. So like if we go
Yeah.
into all right, hang on. We can take it out of the show for now. I did the opposite thing. When it's not loading.
Is that okay? So
because
we're not loading.
The idea is when it is loading, we don't want to show the data. When it's done loading, then
you're all asleep. I think it should be the last. We've all gone to sleep. We an hour and a half too long. Yeah, this makes sense. I'm glad you spotted it.
So now by default we get. So it actually goes super quick because the loading is really quick.
Yeah.
So
you could put a set timeout in the thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't really want to. You get the idea. Like, we do have a loading state. We also have an error state. So, like, if this thing threw an error, we could call data.error to see whether it errored out. But yeah, okay. I got through a bunch of really cool features that Solid has.
You did it in record time as well. So that's good.
Sweet. Yeah. Any last questions, chat or Eddie? I'm happy to answer.
I think it's really impressive. You've got me questioning my life choices. So that is quite interesting. How big is the? Obviously, React's got the one of the biggest communities out there because it's been around for a long time and got a big cult following. Is it still pretty active and everyone's pretty quite passionate and so forth?
Yeah, let me just see if I can safely show the Discord on screen. One sec.
Sure. And then there's a question about what's the open close brackets called.
Some people call those handlebars, but I think handlebars used to be double curlies.
It was double, yeah, back in the day.
So this is the Solid Discord, which I highly recommend everyone joining. So to get to this Discord, you go to solidjs.com. You just hit this little Discord button. By the way, on the website, you can see like a 10-minute intro video that I made. So if you want to basically see a version of this demo in 10 minutes, you can click this button. I also have other videos. So like I was doing some FAQs, like when do I use a signal versus a store? I haven't showed you what a store is. Oh, this is a good one. So this video explains the salad draw, the rendering drawing. So if you want to share just this part of today's demo with someone, you can. I'm going to post this video because it's very relevant.
Do it. I'm just sharing your Twitter in the chat.
Wait, how do I? Oh, someone asked a great question. What's my favorite feature? So there's a tweet I made. Let me try to pull this tweet up. I think it's very funny. So how do I search my tweets? It wasn't that long ago. I'm just going to scroll
down. I don't think you can't.
Yeah, all right, here it is. Here it is.
Manually.
Okay. Put it on the screen. I created a reactive primitives tier list for Solid features.
Reactive primitives tier list. Okay, got you.
So Solid ships with all these little functions. So I decided to rank them by how much I like them. So my favorite is signal and memo. I actually decided based on the comments, I want to put resource in S tier as well. I think resource is super cool. Then store, which we haven't gotten into. I put effects as a C. So using effects manually means that you're sort of going outside the system to trigger something. But yeah, this is a convoluted answer to the question of what's my favorite feature. I ranked them all. So there we go.
It did well, 63 likes as well. So that's 8 retweets and 1 quote, so like 9.
And people started debating me on this.
Oh wow! Great way to get engagement.
Create mutable is actually S tier, but only OGs know. People are asking about other ones that I forgot to add. So if you come from React, React has refs. Solid also has refs, but in React you use the ref to get the actual value of an element. But in Solid, if you create an element, you already have the actual value. But we don't have to get into that. I got a quote tweet. Theo disagrees with my ranking. Anyway, all right.
No, that was awesome. Dan, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you taking the time, take us through that. And everyone's, saying Dan solid demo was solid. So that's awesome.
Love it.
Thank you, Praduma. Aaron as well. Stephen, thanks for all the amazing support, everyone. Nikhil, one last question. How do you see Solid and your professional suggestions for front end and full stack developer?
Oh, like if you're trying to get a job really quickly, don't use Solid. If you try to like create an app, I would highly recommend giving Solid a try because it makes it a lot quicker to do a lot of things.
That's a good advice, definitely. Right, you got to check your local market and see. Local's not so important anymore, but at least check the area you want to work in, and see what they're using, right? So I think that's important. But Jennifer, great to have you here as well. Long time no see, and Crisp as well for supporting. Thank you, everyone. I have shared the YouTube video by Dan in the chat as well. Thank you all for sticking with us through the highs and the lows. I know I've learned so much and definitely going to have a look and have a play. What do you think, Solid for beginners? From the sounds of it, I'm guessing it's a good place to start, but I'll let Dan answer that.
Yeah, one of the things that I struggle with, the reason why I like doing these streams is because I want to show the beginner story. We have a new docs project that's has a beginner tutorial on it. That's docs.solidjs.com. I'll just link it. It's very slow. Like there's only one big tutorial on there. I'll put it in the private chat and you can. The reason why I joined the Solid team is because I believed it was better for beginners than other frameworks. Does that mean that the docs are there in place today? Probably not. But hey, I'm always around to show you the ropes.
Yeah, Dan's always super helpful. So definitely follow Dan on Twitter, and definitely join their Discord, and you can geek out with them more as well. I know Dan has another meeting, so it's probably a good place to end. Everyone, give the video a thumbs up. Thank you so much for supporting, and I'll also see you in the Eddie Hub Discord as well between videos and live streams. Dan, thank you so much again. If you can hang on for a few more minutes, I'll say thank you to you privately afterwards. Otherwise, I'll chat to you soon. And everyone, we'll see you soon. I'll bring up the holding page. I've got to bring up the holding page. Where is it? Oh my God. Bye.